Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. Subscribe to stay up to date on all things Giants. Believe it or not, we actually got good news in regards to injuries, which is not something that we are used to hearing as Giants fans. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Andrew Thomas, our beloved left tackle, the machine that makes this offense run, is back at practice. He was activated off the PUP list and he is starting to practice again. Now, I do want to point out that when Andrew Thomas spoke to the media, he was very cautious, if you will, and said that he's taking it day to day. This injury is tough, a little bit harder for the bigger guys like him to come back from. So he didn't exactly say that he thinks he's going to be ready to go for week one, because I think he just didn't want to put that pressure on himself and the team if, he has some sort of setback or anything like that. But he's back at practice, which is the first step in the right direction, which is really, really important. So I'm happy he's back, and we're all going to keep our fingers crossed that he is ready to go for week one. He's not the only one that was back at practice, because wide receiver Malik Neighbors was also back. He was not in the team periods. He was doing stuff on the sideline, but he's back at practice, which is so important. Of course, I know we're all at the point where we're like, we just want everyone healthy for week one. Like at this point, nothing else matters. So Malik being back at practice again in individuals and slowly will work his way up to team periods, extremely, extremely important. And the good news is that for any of the players who are going to play in Thursday's game, which we're going to talk about shortly, they will have a full 10 days. Or more than that. No, next weekend's Labor Day. So they have a good period before the first game, which is awesome. So everyone's going to have time to rest, recover, rehab, do whatever they need to do so they're ready for week one. Now, the next player who is back is, of course, running back Cam Skattebo, who I know we were all super excited to see and obviously have been begging for him to come back. Now, I thought this was really interesting because what we know about the Giants is that they are very, very cautious when it comes to injuries. And Scat had some sort of hamstring issue in the spring, comes back to practice, gets right into it, is doing great, perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden one day he aggravates the hamstring and is out of practice for a while. Well, all of a sudden, yesterday, he's back in the team drills. So I was surprised by that, because you've got guys like, Andrew Thomas and Malik Neighbors and even Tyler Nubin who are on the side, not in the team drills, but Scat is back in the team drills. So I think that means he's perfectly healthy, good to go. There's no concern. So again, let's all keep our fingers crossed until then. So the reporters were back at practice yesterday, and we have a couple more injury updates from that perspective. So some of the players that were not in attendance were wide receiver Dalen Cambry, wide receiver Daquan Felton, and offensive lineman Joshua Ezeudu. Dan Duggan also had that Theo Johnson was missing, but then he came out on the field in all of his practice gear and was ready to go. So I don't know what happened there, but he was back at practice, which is great. Players who were on the side, Andrew Thomas, Deontay Banks, and Trey Hawkins. Players who were back in team drills, Skattebo, Bellinger, Manhurt, and safety Kevon Wallace. And then lastly, Malik Neighbors and Tyler Nubin were on the side. So again, overall, good news that these players are back at practice. That's the number one thing that we want to see. So with that being said, we have the final preseason game this week on Thursday night. The Giants take on the Patriots at home at MetLife Stadium. I think at this point, we're probably not going to see a lot of starters, which I'm also fine with. What I do expect is this. I think we will see Jackson Dart for at least a quarter, maybe even a half. It's going to be very interesting. So we're definitely going to see Dart. We're going to see Winston. We're going to see DeVito. I don't think we're going to see any starters. There's a possibility that we might see James Hudson because he was getting some reps with the twos last week. But I don't think we're going to see JMS, Illuminor, Runyon, or GVR, which means that we're going to see a lot of Evan Neal. We might see Joshua Ezeudu if he's back. We're going to see Jake Kubas. We're going to see a lot of those backup offensive linemen, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Players I also don't think that we're going to see is Tay Banks, because he was not in the team drills, which means when we talk about the defense, it's probably going to be a lot more Cordell Flott. But overall, from the offense, we're obviously not going to see Neighbors. I don't think we're going to see any Sleaton, any Wandale, Tracy, nothing. So it'll be interesting. I just am getting the assumption that because they already got some good playing time between game 1 and game 2 of preseason, game 3, they're out, which again, I think we're all just bubble wrap everyone until week 1. That is most important. We need to win that game in Washington. So Anyway, let's talk about some of the skill players because the wide receiver competition has been very, very interesting. I think I originally had Jalen Hyatt making this roster, and now I'm not so sure. I'm not sold on him being cut, but I think his playing time tomorrow and what he does tomorrow is going to be really imperative as to whether or not he makes the roster. Again, I just can't see the Giants giving up on him just yet. You never know. But it's very interesting to me that we only saw him for a couple snaps last week. And Dable's going to do his whole, he's coming back from an injury, so he was on a limited snap count. Sure, Dable, whatever. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. I think we'll have a better indication of that tomorrow if he gets a lot of reps with Dart and the twos. So wide receiver position. So obviously Jalen Hyatt is going to be a guy to watch. Bo Collins, who's done a really nice job throughout preseason. The special teams coach was raving about him. So obviously he's used on specials too. And, when it comes to that 5th and 6th wide receiver role, the capability of whether or not they can play special teams is going to be the reason as to why or why not they make this roster. So Bo Collins, definitely a guy to watch. I'm excited to see a bit of him and Jackson Dart. Montrell Washington and Little Jordan Humphrey are the next two. I kind of feel like those two are neck and neck, and it could go either way. Now, Little Jordan Humphrey had the touchdown, which helps him back in week 1 of the preseason. But ultimately, it's about consistency, right? So when these guys get the targets, do they get the ball? Can they hold on to it? And can they make plays? We saw it from Bo Collins last week with that beautiful 80-yard catch from Russell Wilson, and we've seen Montrell Washington and Little Jordan Humphrey involved a lot with the twos and with Jackson Dart. So things that I'm going to be watching out of them is, again, when they get the ball in their hands, can they make plays? Can they hold on to it? Do they catch the easy balls, right? The ones that are in the chest that they should catch. Can they make contested catches? Do they get yak yardage? Do they push for that extra couple yards? Bo Collins not getting the touchdown there. Look, it is what it is. Stuff like that is going to happen. But can they push it a little bit further, right? Are they trying for that? And are they in good communication with the quarterback? We saw that happen last week with, I'm pretty sure it was Bo Collins and Russell Wilson. And, Bo Collins was just not in the right spot. So we saw it happen with Greg Dulcich and Jackson Dart in week 1, too. They cleaned it up in week 2. Are they able to stay on communication, be where they're supposed to be? That at this point in the season is important. Now, they're not running a full offense and the whole thing, but we have seen this team have so many issues when it comes to communication and mistakes and penalties and things like that they have to clean it up wherever they can. And if you want to make the roster, you better do that. So I think the wide receiver position is going to be really fun to watch. And I think there are some guys who have stood out. I think that Dalen Cambry being on the side or not at practice yesterday is obviously hurting his chances. They will still have practices after the preseason game, but ultimately, a game setting is different than practice. And, Brandon Brown, the assistant GM, kind of spoke about this in his presser and said, how we practice is how we play. And we are going to give the players who play the best during practice the most amount of playing time during the game. Those are the guys that deserve it, not the ones who get paid the most, not the ones who was a first round pick, et cetera, et cetera. So again, wide receivers, super fun to watch. I'm excited to see more of them. Turbo, that's all I have to say. Watch number 25. I think we're going to see a lot of him tomorrow. There's no doubt in my mind that he is making the roster over someone like Jonathan Ward. I think Ward has done a nice job, but it's not even close compared to what Turbo's done. And with Scat being back, it's going to be very interesting. I don't think we're going to see Singletary tomorrow, but Turbo, I'm rooting for you. I always am. I want him to make this roster. I think he deserves it. I think he's done enough. I want to see the consistency. Do it again in week 3. Prove that this Giants team can be a screen game team for the first time in literally a decade with Turbo on the field. He's capable of making it happen. So excited to see more of him from the running back perspective. And then the tight end. So this is interesting. I was on a podcast last night and we were talking about this a lot because we feel like the tight end position is going to be really tough for this front office to make decisions. And this is what you want, right? You don't want to feel like, oh, we've got our 3 guys and everyone else sucks. This was too easy. And we've seen year after year that how many Giants players, when they get cut from the Giants, they don't get picked up by other teams. They're not good enough to. And this is the first time that between the running backs, the wide receivers, and the tight ends, there are going to be some tough choices that this front office has to make, and I do not envy them. So with the tight end position, I don't think we're going to see Theo Johnson because he's already a starter. That's solidified, no questions there. With Manhurts coming back from an injury and the same thing with Bellinger, I think it's going to be really interesting. They were back in team drills yesterday, so I expect that we probably will see a little bit out of both of them. And I kind of feel like Bellinger could be on the chopping block. I know that the front office likes him and he's done a good job, but I feel like if it's between him and it's between Fedoni or even Dolcic, who've all done really nice jobs during preseason, I could see them going after the cheaper option, which is out of the three of them is Fedoni as a 6th round pick, who's really athletic and again has done a really nice job this preseason. So I'm really excited to see more of Fedoni, especially him with Jackson Dart. I'm sure that he's going to get some reps with the twos and Dolcic, and then we'll see what happens with Bellinger and Manhurts, whether or not they play. Again, it's a good problem to have when you have good talent fighting for only so many roster spots. Now, is there a chance that they keep 4 tight ends? Sure. Do I think it's likely? No. I think at least one of them is going to end up on the practice squad. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the tight end group as a whole, I think, is also going to be really fun to watch tomorrow night. Lastly is the offensive line. So, like I said, we're probably not seeing any starters. We're going to see a lot of Evan Neal, Jay Kubas, Brian Hudson, who's the center, Austin Schlottman, Aaron Stinney. The list goes on. Out of those players, I think we can all agree that there are 2 that are the most important, and that's Evan Neal and Marcus Bowe. Evan Neal, from what I saw watching the game, seemed like he had a relatively good game, right? He gave up the 1 sack on Jackson Dart where, Neal missed his guy and Dart ends up tripping over the defender because Neal missed his guy. I went back and watched Bobby Skinner. His show is called Giants Nation Show on all platforms. He did a cut up of all of Evan Neal's snaps during the Jets game. And after watching the film, it's not great. Overall, you could say he was good enough because he gave up the 1 sack. He didn't give up a ton of pressures, no quarterback hits. He didn't give up 5 sacks a game. He wasn't looking like the old Evan Neal that we're so used to seeing at tackle. But just because he wasn't on the ground during every snap doesn't mean that he really did a great job. So if you guys are interested, I would say definitely watch that video. I think it's like 12 minutes. It's not super long. But when you go back and watch the film, it is a little discouraging because you just see things from Neal where like his footwork is not very fast. He's not getting off the blocks quickly. It seems like at certain points he doesn't know which defensive lineman or edge like he's supposed to be going after. So even there's like 1 snap where, JMS ends up double teamed and Evan Neal is kind of like didn't know where he was supposed to go. So that stuff is a little concerning. Yes, it was his first game back. Yes, it was his first game back at guard. The thing that I'm curious about with Evan Neal too, and then we'll move over to Bowe, is does he get snaps at left guard tomorrow? Which I think there is a possibility, knowing that John Runnion's not going to play. Just like none of the starters are, because he was better on the left side in college. And, the left tackle situation, if it's Marcus Bowe at left tackle and Evan Neal at left guard, I think that could be beneficial. Bowe has done a really nice job so far. And, if Evan Neal ends up being good enough at left guard that he can force the rotation with John Runyon, he's got Andrew Thomas on his left side. And look, Illuminor is a good tackle. Andrew Thomas is the best on the team. Like, it's not even close. So I think that would also really help out Evan Neal. He played the left side in college. You've got that working for him. So I don't know, but that's one thing that I'm going to be watching with Neal is do they rotate him on both guard positions like they've done with Bowe? Next up with Bowe, I'm really excited to watch him. He's done a really great job throughout this preseason. He hasn't been perfect by any means, but for a rookie who's been playing both sides, left tackle and right tackle, for a rookie who was a 5th round draft pick on 64 pass blocking snaps, no sacks, no quarterback hits, 1 pressure. Those are some damn good stats. So I think that there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about a guy like Marcus Bowe. And, we talk about this offensive line and how it's been such a shit show for the last decade, and they can't get the draft right, and they can't get free agency right, and everything about it seems like it has gone wrong. I'm afraid to say this. Marcus Bowe could be one of our offensive linemen for the next decade, at least for the next 4 years, right, on his rookie contract. Could be. Obviously, he needs to develop, but we're seeing some of these guys, like, dare I say it, Joshua Zudu. is obviously better since they moved him to guard. But year two with Carmen Brasillo, I've heard a lot of players talk about how they really love Carm and he's done a really great job and he's helped these players progress and improve. And he's a great offensive line coach. So, you know, you've got what we've seen from Marcus Bowe, plus a good coach, plus the pressure of him not having to start. He's going to have the opportunity and the time to learn and develop, hopefully, before he gets thrown into a game, just like Jackson Dart, and, you know, going to have that time to grow. And then hopefully by the time he's put on the field, we really see all of the good work that he's learned over the last year or whatever it is before we see him. So Marcus Bowe, very excited that he's a Giant. I love the pick at the time, and it's making me really, really excited and optimistic that maybe, just maybe, we finally hit on an offensive lineman in the draft. Tomorrow on Game Day, we are going to talk about the defensive players to watch, so make sure you subscribe.